Hashem sat enthroned at the flood. Hashem sits enthroned as king forever. Hashem will give might to his nation. Hashem will bless his nation with peace.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Hallelujah. We all have peace. We have shalom, don't we?
Yes.
All right, that's good. Let's go to page 2 then and praise the Lord of the universe in 2 languages. And we got a new visitor here.
Maybe the next rabbi.
Maybe the next preacher, yeah. Okay.
There is nothing wrong with a child coming into the house of the Lord. Amen. Hallelujah. Pretty wonderful.
Bless the Lord who is worthy to be praised. Blessed be the Lord who is worthy to be praised forever and ever. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohim, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever and ever.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי בצורך היום על לבבך. ושינתם בבניך, ודיברת בם ושיתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ושכבך בתחומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לאות החוט בין עיניך.
And you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Let these matters that I command you today be upon your heart. Teach them diligently to your children, and speak of them while you sit in your home, while you walk on the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your arm, and let them be a sign between your eyes. And write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. And you should love your neighbor as yourself. On these 2 commandments rest the entire Torah and the prophets. And you can go to page 6.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu et derech, Yeshua Mashiach Yeshua. Amen.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has given us the way of salvation in the Messiah Yeshua. Amen. Let's turn to page 7 for the Amidah.
Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Rezeinu Patenu, Kashenu, B'mitzvotecha, B'ten Kalpenu, B'toratecha, Farenu B'tulecha, B'salavenu, B'shuatecha, B'taher libeinu, Le'adecha, Amen. B'taher libeinu, B'taher libeinu, B'taher libeinu, Le'adecha, Amen. B'taher libeinu, B'taher libeinu, B'taher libeinu, Le'adecha, Amen. Ve'achikleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ala l'razon, Shabbat Hashecha, Vayanuchu Vayisrael, Me'chad Yeshem Shmecha, Baruch Adonai, Me'kadesh Hashem.
Our God and God of our fathers, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us through thy commandments and set our portion in thy Torah. Gratify us with thy goodness, gladden us through thy salvation, and purify our hearts to serve thee in truth. Give us thy holy Sabbath, Lord our God, with love and favor as our heritage. And may Israel, who sanctifies thy name, rest on it. Blessed art thou, Lord, who sanctifies the Sabbath. Amen. Yeshua gave us this prayer to do. Avinu, Shabbat Shemayim, Yikadesh Shimcha. Tavo Malchutecha, Ya'aser, Rizoncha Ba'aretz, Ka'asher Na'asa Ba'Shemayim. Tenwadu Hayom Lechem Kukeinu, Uslach Ladu Et Ashmatenu, Ka'asher Solchim Anachnu, La'asher Ashmelanu, Ba'al Tivienu L'dei Masa, Ki'im Hatzleinu Min Hara, Ki'lecha Hamamlecha, Ba'hakura, Ba'hatiferet, Me'olamei, Olamim, Amen.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. I love the Lord, 'cause He hears my call. I love the Lord, 'cause He hears my prayer. I love the Lord, 'cause He hears my cry. Turning His ear, all to me. Turning His ear.
Amen. He is Lord 24/7. All the time. Isn't that right, Richard? And Richard and I, we need the Lord all the time. And more than that. Hallelujah. There's the mountains all around Jerusalem. The Lord is around His people. There's the mountains all around Jerusalem. The Lord is around His people. From this time forth and forevermore, the Lord is around His people. From this time forth it shall always be. The Lord is around His people. Like Mount Zion in the midst of Jerusalem, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Like Mount Zion in the midst of Jerusalem, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. From this time forth and forevermore, the Lord is around His people. From this time forth it shall always be. The Lord is around His people. I said the Lord is around.
Is around.
His Hallelujah. People. Don't you love it when He calls you Ami? My people. Hallelujah. My Jesus, my Savior, Lord, there is none like you. All of my days, I want to praise the wonders of your mighty love. My comfort, my shelter, tower of refuge and strength, let every breath, all that I am, never cease to worship you. Shout to the Lord, all the earth, let us sing. Power and majesty, praise to the King. Mountains bow down and the seas will roar at the sound of your name. I sing for joy at the work of your hands. Forever I love you. Forever I stand. Nothing compares to the promise I have in you. My Yeshua, my Messiah, Lord, there is none like you. All of my days, I want to praise the wonders of your
Today's Torah reading is from the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, chapter 6, verses 9 through 22. Ya'amod, Abir, then Abigdor, Torah.
Amen.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave us your Torah. Blessed are you, who gives us the Torah. Amen. These are the offspring of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with God. Noah had begotten 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Amen.
Now the earth had become corrupt before God, and the earth had been filled with robbery. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupted, for all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with robbery through them, and behold, I am about to destroy them from the earth. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood, and make the ark with compartments, covered inside and out with pitch. This is how you should make it. 300 cubits the length of the ark, 50 cubits its width, and 30 cubits its height. A window shall you make for the ark, and to a cubit finish it from above. Put the entrance of the ark in its side, and make it with the bottom, second, and third decks. And as for me, behold, I am about to bring the flood waters upon the earth, to destroy all flesh in which there is a breath of life from under the heavens. Everything that is in the earth shall expire. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark. You, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And from all that lives, of all flesh, 2 of each shall you bring into the ark and to keep alive with you. They shall be male and female. From each bird according to its kind, and from each animal according to its kind, and from each thing that creeps on the ground according to its kind, 2 of each shall come to you to keep alive. And as for you, take yourself of every food that is eaten, and gather it into yourself, that it shall be as food for you and for them. Noah did according to everything God had commanded him, and so he did. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natananu Torah emet, v'chayim nata b'tukenu. Baruch atah Adonai notei Torah. Amen. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe. You gave us your true instruction and planted everlasting life in our midst. Blessed are you who gives us the Torah. Amen.
Amen.
He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Abir and Abigdor, who has come up to honor God and the Torah. May the Holy One bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the work of his hands. Amen.
Amen.
And we're on page 16, and so are you.
It's fighting here, the Omaha sinking love, its own chaos, Nerusha, the rock chaos, dark no. Te
those who hold fast to her, and all who hold her are blessed. Her ways are pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. Cause us to return to you, O Lord, and we shall return. Renew our days as of old. Amen. Today's reading from the Haftorah is from the book of the prophet Yeshayahu, Isaiah, chapter 54, verses 9 and 10.
Blessed are you, O Lord, our God, King of the universe, who chose good prophets, delighting in their words, which were spoken truthfully. Blessed are you, O Lord, who chose the Torah, your servant Moses, your people Israel, and the prophets of truth and righteousness. Amen. For like the waters of Noah, this shall be to me. Just as I swore that the waters of Noah would never again pass over the earth, so have I sworn not to be wrathful with you, nor to rebuke you. For the mountains may be moved, and the hills may falter, but my kindness shall not be removed from you, and my covenant of peace shall not falter, said the one who shows you mercy, Hashem. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, Rock of ages, righteous in all generations, the faithful God who speaks and performs, who declares and establishes, whose words are entirely truth and righteousness.
Amen.
Amen.
Bless you.
Thank you.
In the past, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets at many times in various ways, but now in the end of days, He has spoken to us by the Messiah, His Son, whom He appointed the heir of all things, through whom He made the universe. Yay. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory and the flawless manifestation of His reality. He sustains all things by His powerful word. After He made atonement for sins, He sat down in the place of authority beside the majesty of heaven. Today's reading from the Berit Chadashah, the renewed covenant, is from the book of Kefa Rishon, 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 18 through 22.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has given us Messiah Yeshua and the words of the renewed covenant. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the renewed covenant. For the Messiah himself died for sins, once and for all, and a righteous person on behalf of unrighteous people, so that he might bring you to God. He was put to death in the flesh, but brought to life by the Spirit. And in this form he went and made a proclamation to the imprisoned spirits, to those who were disobedient long ago in the days of Noach, when God waited patiently during the building of the ark, in which a few people, to be specific 8, were delivered by means of water. This also prefigures what delivers us now, the water of immersion, which is not the removal of dirt from the body, but one's pledge to keep a good conscience toward God through the resurrection of Yeshua the Messiah. He has gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God, with the angels, authorities, and powers subject to him.
Amen.
Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who gave us the word of truth and planted among us life eternal. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the renewed covenant.
Okay, so now we get to bless all the women that are here today. And even if you're not married, we're going to bless you because Isaiah 62 verse 5 says, as a bridegroom rejoices over his bride, so will your God rejoice over you. So this blessing is for all the women that are here today.
Bishalom, lo
A woman of valor, her Christ, she is worth far more than precious jewels. The heart of her husband safely trusts in her, and he profits greatly thereby. Bless you all. We'd like to bless all of God's children. If they'll come and stand under the chuppah, the canopy, to be blessed. God's physical children, come on down. And if there's any children that are not so physical, that are digital or cardboard, that you carry around with you, bring them down. And then if there's any on the way, you know, there's one here, bring that one down. And then all of you who act like children, come on down. God said you're supposed to be. That's like a child. What is Mark? Richard needs to be in. Wrong board on that thing. May God make you as Ephraim and Manasseh and Yeshua our Messiah. Yisamecha Elohim Kesara, Rivka, Rachel, Bilea, Yeshua HaMashiach. May God make you as Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah and Yeshua our Messiah. May the Spirit of the Lord rest upon you, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of power, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord. And may you delight in the fear of the Lord. Bless you, children. Go in peace. Shabbat Shalom. And the children are going to Shabbat school, are they not? Are they? You have little ones? Okay, the little ones. Okay, that's all. You have little ones. Sorry they didn't make it. Except for Rich. Yeah. Who does that song? Holy, holy, holy Lord, and mighty. Thank you, Lou. He's got his name right in the middle of that. All right, so next week we have, no, the following week, November 8th, we have Bat Mitzvah for Heidi.
Yes.
Heidi is hopefully ready for that. And so we'll celebrate, and if you could bring a side dish, they're going to provide meat for the party afterwards. And then the next day, November 9th, you get to serve lunch at the Open Door Mission again. Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
All right, good.
And Gary.
All three of you that are involved.
Three of us.
Okay, and then I got some good news this week. It only took me 8 years to work on this, and then 3 days of emails back and forth this week. But Barry and Boccia Siegel will be here. Friday night, November 14th at 7 p.m. and Saturday they'll do our worship service here at 10 a.m. So they were here last year in March 2001, I'm told.
Wow.
13 years, so it's been a long time, but they are awesome. And I know you all listen to their music, so. And we will take offerings for their Vision for Israel and Joseph Storehouse, two great things that I've been supporting ever since I met them, 20 years ago? A long time ago. I've been to Joseph Storehouse. It's a really neat place. Okay, we have our Rosh Chodesh coming up today. Today is Rosh Chodesh. It's a brand new month, so we need to inaugurate this month in our way. May it be your will, Hashem our God and God of our forefathers, that you inaugurate this month upon us for goodness and for blessing. May you give us long life, a life of peace, a life of goodness, a life of blessing, a life of sustenance, a life of physical health, a life in which there is fear of heaven and fear of sin, a life in which there is no shame or humiliation, a life of wealth and honor, a life in which we will have love of Torah and fear of heaven, a life in which the requests of our heart will be fulfilled for the good, and everyone said, Amen. May He who performed miracles for our forefathers and redeemed them from slavery to freedom, may He redeem us soon and gather in our dispersed from the four corners of the earth, all Israel becoming comrades. And everyone responds, Amen. Amen. The new month of Cheshvan is today, first day of the week. It's Shabbat. And it's coming to us and to all Israel for goodness. May the Holy One, blessed is He, renew it upon us and upon all His people, the family of Israel, for life and for peace, for joy and for gladness, for salvation and for consolation. And now let us respond with a shout to the Lord, huh? Hallelujah. Welcome to the new month. Yeah, and then, I've been going through Joshua, starting with Joshua, and I've been in Acts chapter 1, and actually I'm in Acts chapter 1 again today. I'm not Acts, Joshua chapter 1. What did I say? Acts. I've been alternating between Acts and Joshua. It's getting a little confusing. Well, we've got to be ready for action.
Amen.
It's hard on me too. I don't know where to turn. The initial verses of Joshua deal with this encounter as an individual with God. Remember? We talked about that. The lifestyle of promise is not fleshed out in an individualistic basis. God has spoken to a duly humble Joshua, calling him to a lifestyle of promise. Moses now is dead. So God has gotten his point across that he needs new leadership and that has a healthy self-esteem. And so Joshua, fresh from his encounter with God, returns to the camp, and now he faces the people. They need to be mobilized for action. They need to be ready for action to move out into the promised land. It's important that we make the point now that we are moving from talking about God's individual contact with us to the way God deals in the life of his people as a community. We are a community. We are a Mishpocha, family who are together. So we're not individuals anymore. We know that God touches us as individuals, but he doesn't leave it there. God's interaction with us as individuals also has implications for the entire community of faith to which we identify. Those of us who are believers of God's Word know that a lifestyle of promise is not fleshed out in a Lone Ranger existence. Yeah? It involves the whole community. We are a community. I'm not certain, however, that we really hear that message. Joshua 1, 10 through 18 gives us a unique opportunity to concentrate on life lived in a community. So let's go there. And there's a good bridge here from the individual God-human interaction to the corporate responsibilities of both being leaders. We're all leaders. You know, I'm not just the leader. You're all leaders. And a people. We have an excellent model of Joshua and his interaction with God's people. Joshua and Israel provide a model for our contemporary community, showing us two primary pictures of people mobilized for action. One is the picture of a leader, the other is a picture of people. So a people mobilized for action has leadership that is qualified to lead, number one. Something has happened to Joshua here. The man who had been lacking in self-esteem has encountered the living God. I mean, this was a guy who had no self-esteem. God has released within Joshua the leadership capabilities that he had been nurturing in him for several decades. Joshua returns to the camp and wastes no time in taking charge. 4 leadership qualities emerge, and Joshua has them all. We need to examine our own lives to see where we can learn what we can learn from this model given by Joshua. Okay? So, Joshua was not only the leader, but he was also in charge. You know, that happens. The first leadership quality is that a qualified leader has to be in tune with God.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
People have a right to expect godly leadership. This leadership must have a word from the Lord, and it must be obedient to that word. There's no room for double standards. Every religious leader must have a life that reflects a humble dependence upon the Lord and live in a humble relationship with other leaders. He or she is not to be jealous of others whom God has chosen, for we are all part of God's community. Too much leadership is very managerial in style. I've seen it. It has read the latest books, you know, that they have on the market on administration. Knowledge of management theory is important, and this must never be minimized. I spent 20 years in the military. I got more management training than I could ever imagine in my entire life. You all who've been there know that.
Yes.
That's all they pound into us. However, it is no substitute for growing, developing daily relationship with the living God.
Amen.
What you get doesn't mean anything except the way you develop it with God, right? Joshua has been with God. He has listened to what God had to say, and he's dealt with his own internal fears and his own self-doubt. God has touched him. God has commissioned him and told him to arise. Get up. As long as Joshua would be faithful to him, God had promised to be faithful to Joshua. So this chapter of Joshua centers on the identity of God's people in relationship to its human leader.
Amen.
The leadership has passed from Moses to Joshua, and as centuries go by, this leadership has continued to be passed on. Yeshua became the new Joshua, eventually, embodying as no other leader in human history what it means to be the leader. Right? People must have a strong identity with leaders who are loyal to that incomparable pioneer of the faith, Yeshua HaMashiach. Yep, that's the one. Such leadership must face the task given by God with a strong conviction and courage. Only with such leadership can people be expected to follow in positive ways. Can't stress enough the importance of daily conversations with God. How many of you speak to God every day?
Amen.
Read the Bible every day. Meditate. Pray every day. You need to do that. Let me read you something from a teacher, a guy who was a chaplain in the U.S. Senate. He said, the concept that the larger the leadership task is, the more important it is that the leader be in tune with God. Okay, and he wrote in his newsletter, the larger the rock you drop in a quiet pool, the greater the ripples that radiate out from the splash, washing across everything in their way as they circle toward the edge of the water. This is obvious when it comes to dropping pebbles in puddles. But what is equally obvious, yet too often overlooked by men, is the same identical principles in life. A man's impact moves out from him in concentric waves, touching everyone within the sphere of his influence with greater or less force, depending on the man. The bigger the man, the greater the impact. Good or bad, it influences those around him. His sin moves out to cover the crowd just as much as his righteousness does. The little man can get away with things a big man ought never be able to do. Because the little man isn't noticed like a big man, his actions and attitudes don't register the same force. The very fact that a man has risen to a place of power and prestige doubles or triples or quadruples his responsibilities. His life is continually influencing others, consciously or unconsciously. The greater the heights he has reached, the more important his position, the more eagerly people follow him. He becomes an example, the standard, the norm, the right or wrong by virtue of his position. His life becomes a goal toward which other men strive. Either they deliberately copy the big man, thinking they're finding a secret of success, or else the fact that he does a thing or does not means approval or disapproval to them. If the big man does it, it's okay. In either case, it's dangerous, because often men who actually imitate the superficial, the secondary, or the thing that's safe for the big man may destroy those who follow him. Whether a man likes it or not, if he's in a place of leadership, he will be influencing others. He has no right just to consider himself. He must think in terms of his influence. This is part of the price to pay for being a leader. Not just the man himself, but what happens to those who follow in his footsteps is the serious responsibility of the leader, the big man. This is inescapable. To whom much is given, much surely will be required. So, each of us has an impact on someone. Did you know that? You have an impact on somebody. No matter who you are, it's crucial that you be in tune with God. Because you're impacting someone. You got to take your role seriously. Every man or woman who follows Yeshua is called to some sphere of leadership that requires time spent with God. All of you. Second, a leader who is qualified to lead is willing to take tough stands. Can't just wimp out. Joshua was not ambivalent, nor did he delay. He recognized the moment of truth. He could no longer equivocate. The people must move into the promised land. That was what was going to happen. Then, or they'll never do it. He issued the commands. This needs to take a firm position. Does not imply aggressive behavior that comes out of insecurity. It doesn't imply a cosmetic self-insurance or manipulation of people into carrying out a partially prepared plan. 40 years had already gone by. I mean, that's a long time. 40 years. How many of you realize that 40 years is a long time? Nah. Those of you who are 20 don't know that. And much planning has already been done. Joshua's leadership had a continuity with what was going on before. I mean, it was just continuation, right? Either the spies had already gone into Jericho and had come back with their reports, or were now in the process of doing the reconnaissance and would soon be back with final info. There is no substitute for getting prepared in a good way. You got to be prepared, right? There is a moment, however, in which a leader must move from preparation into action. Okay? One stage to another. This is the moment of no return. The point of no return, they call it, when you're flying halfway. It is at this moment that the leader is the most vulnerable. Oh, boy. True leadership, when it's practiced by the most mature and emotionally stable person always exacts a toll on the leader, on the person. The greater the achievement, the higher the price that you pay. The same is true of leadership. Yeshua himself seemed to have this thought in mind in Luke 9:24. You have that? If you really want to find your life, you got to lose it. Any worthwhile accomplishment has a price tag. The question is, how much are you willing to pay in hard work and sweat for it? Some of the painful aspects of leadership are every leader gets criticized. Man, I know. It's part of the territory. It goes with the job, doesn't it? Also, fatigue. You get tired, man. You get beat up. A good leader must learn how to handle stress without getting burned out. Now, let me tell you, I've been burned out a lot of times, and I've had to work through it and come back from it. I've been through burnout. I know what it is. Guess what else you get? You get lonely. Loneliness will be experienced. A leader lives in no man's land between identifying with his people and being isolated from them. I mean, I know what it's like to be lonely. I do it all the time. A leader is also will be forced to make, guess what? Unpleasant decisions. Not every decision is going to be a happy one. Yep. Every decision, by the very nature of what a decision is, has a degree of finality to it. That excludes the possibility of continuing to consider other options. Once you make up your mind and decide, you can't think of other things. Rejection also comes to a leader, right? Every normal, well-adjusted person, including me, that wants to be liked. I want you all to like me, you know. But a leader will not always be liked. In fact, a leader could be hated. Could be, you know, they throw stones at leaders. This passage gives a perfect opportunity to share one's own personal struggles in leadership. I mean, I know I've struggled through all of that. And I do, all the time. And I still do. I have never yet had the luxury of making a decision that was free from any kind of controversy. Occasionally, an issue is clear-cut, where the Bible speaks with much clarity. Most of my struggles have come across when decisions had to be made on which there was a difference of opinion. You have two Jews, you have three opinions, right? So you're starting off in a bad place. To do nothing indefinitely would have ended up being a negative course of action. A leader needs to bring his people to a decision. Not everyone reaches a decision at the same time, however. We all know the feeling. Let's let our people know we sometimes feel lonely. I do. I feel criticized. I feel rejected when I've had to take responsibility for mobilizing you to action of some sort or another. Everyone sees me differently, too. You don't see me the same way as she does, or he does, or they do. You know? Having observed Moses and his struggles, Joshua could have rationalized indecision and lack of activity for another decade or two. I could have said, I don't want to be part of that. Instead, he knew that the time of action had come. He was willing to mobilize the people, building on the past successes and failures of Moses. Remember when we started this congregation, we got taken out to dinner, me and you? This couple from Sioux City, Iowa, these two doctors. And they said, we need to start a congregation in Omaha. And we said, yeah, that would be great. Go ahead. That was the dumbest thing we ever said. Well, we need a Jewish leader. I hope the fire went. Oh, man, that was a rough dinner. What did we eat?
They paid for it.
We ate crow. I don't remember what we ate. Yeah, they paid for dinner, and we've been paying ever since. No, I'm not. No, that's been an awesome thing. You know what's good about being a leader? You can delegate responsibility.
Yeah.
Hey, Roger, do this.
You gotta do that to him.
Joshua did this by working through the administrative structure that was already in place. I mean, they already had a structure. We had to start our own. He commanded the officers of the people to carry out the word throughout the camp, that within 3 days they would be passing over the Jordan River. Okay? The word officers literally means scribes, actually, in Hebrew. This is hardly what they were. They were subordinate officers of some sort who had both a military function and a responsibility in the civilian government that existed there. Reference is made to them in Deuteronomy 16:18 and 25:9, and in Exodus 5:6-10, they appear as foremen or taskmasters. Okay, nothing ruins a community faster than a leadership that doesn't know how to delegate or refuses to delegate responsibility. Moses learned that the hard way, didn't he? In Exodus 18. He began his leadership career as a charismatic leader. I mean, there was a guy that everybody loved, and looked up to. God had chosen him to be the leader. And Moses took the task seriously. By the sheer magnetism of his personality and God-given gifts, he led the people all the way out of Egypt, through the desert, across the Red Sea. He gave everything he had in those early months of the Exodus to the point where he just emotionally and spiritually burned out. Moses dropped dead of exhaustion. His father-in-law had become Jethro and observed the terrible thing that was going on in Moses and suggested that he delegate responsibility. You know, he showed both his humility as a son-in-law and a willingness to learn as a leader. Okay. He accepted Jethro's advice that Moses consider himself a personal liaison between God and the people. And instead of listening to every complaint and trying to solve every problem, he delegated that responsibility to other people. He also chose others of integrity, people who hated a bribe, to rule over 1,000, over 100, over 50, over 10. Only the most difficult cases came to Moses after all that. The smaller matters could be decided through that chain of command that he had set up. Joshua observed that and learned that lesson, that he didn't have to control everything. He was willing to delegate. Yeah, no problem. The person who delegates has to trust those to whom he gives the responsibility to. You can't just delegate and not trust the people you delegate to. The ideal community mobilized for action has a network of persons who faithfully carry out responsibilities. They know that the leader trusts them to do their work. They are trained for that. They're given the responsibility. They carry it all out. Okay. Fourth, the leader who is qualified to lead must have a plan of action. You've got to deal with more than just slogans. Leadership is not cosmetic. Joshua commanded his people to do 3 things. The self-contained lesson in this plan of action would be a 3-point message. He told them to prepare, to pass over, and to possess. First, they were to prepare their provision because guess what? Goodbye manna. Manna would no longer be. They were coming into the land, and guess what was in the land? Food. Yeah, they were to get ready for the conquest in a way that used their own natural resources. God only provides supernatural resources when natural provisions are not sufficient. Okay. Some religions emphasize myths and fables. Although the Bible specifies that God occasionally functions in supernatural ways, this is not the primary stress of the Scriptures. And there is no reveling in the supernatural. For example, when Peter was in prison, his chains were loosed by an angel. He was let out of his imprisonment. God intervened supernaturally at the point of specific need. God did not then transport Peter on a magic carpet to the house where the believers were. Peter had to make his own way through the city of Jerusalem. Divine energy always stimulates activity. It never lulls one to sleep. Second, the Israelites were to pass over the Jordan. This was Joshua's plan of action. And third, they were going to possess the land that God had prepared for them. he had given the promise. This action was to go and do the job. So we come to 16 through 18. And here we see a people mobilized for action. And two primary things stand out. First, a people mobilized for action is willing to subordinate personal vested interests for the community good. Put your personal stuff aside for the community. Okay? Verses 12 to 15 tell the story of the Reubenites, the Gadites, the half-tribe of Manasseh. They had already been given their land on the east side of the Jordan River, right? In Deuteronomy 3 and Numbers 32. And they were already beginning to settle into a more sedentary lifestyle. Well, guess what? They must have had good reason for not wanting to cross the Jordan. They could have declared that the other 9 half-tribes had plenty of manpower to conquer the land without them. Or their wives and children could have been an excuse to stay at home. As it was, the tribes did leave a sizable number behind to take care of their families. But they kept their promise. Okay? And were enthusiastically willing to support the rest of the conquest of the land. Fidelity to engagements is a noble quality, just as laxity is a miserable shortcoming. Those provided for did not forget the others who were not yet settled. They assisted those in need at great personal sacrifice. This is a testimony against being selfish. Oh, there's strike stuff in there for you. It's a statement of brotherhood and sisterhood. It speaks of loyalty and attests to the public spirit that is to be ours as believers in Yeshua HaMashiach. And it shows the importance of being obedient to the commands of God, as were the tribes to the Mosaic commands. Nothing destroys our community faster than petty individual vested interests. This is seen in our whole nation. There are one-cause groups dedicated to disrupting whatever general welfare stands in the way of their particular concern. There's nothing wrong with working hard for a cause, especially if it's a God-ordained cause. We can thank God for those who have dedicated themselves to, do all the big things that have happened in history, abolishment of slavery, things like that. They were crusaded and they had a single-minded purpose. Those who were most successful, however, saw their cause as one among other causes. They approached it in a healing manner. Anarchy was not their goal. Same kind of thing happens in a church. Some advocate world missions to neglect of home missions. Others will give only what they can, control at home, and attack the concept of giving beyond the local community. Some emphasize evangelism to the neglect of nurturing in a Christian way. Some others stress nurture to the neglect of evangelism. Some see the gospel in terms of spiritual salvation. Others see it in the terms of transformation of society. Some are priestly in their orientation, and while others are very prophetic. Some want to stress on cognitive doctrine and technical Bible teaching. Others want the stress to be on relationships. Some see success measured in bricks and mortar, and others stress program. We don't have a bricks and mortar thing here, do we? No, we were told from the beginning we weren't going. Not that we didn't try. There is nothing wrong with any of those emphases, though. I've mentioned each is correct in its place. What rips at the fabric of the group is that when any one vested interest group defines ministry in its own terms without seeing the gospel in its fullness. We have individual gifts and interests that enrich the whole community when we subordinate ourselves to the community welfare. Okay? I'm excited that we see this whole New Testament principle that's so beautifully fleshed out here in Joshua. This historical experience in the life of Israel gives us perfect opportunity to stress the fact that there is no room for selfishness at all. We are family. We are mishpocha. Within the ideal mishpocha, those who are rich Share with those who are poor. We are called to be sensitive to the needs of the widow and the orphan. Those of us who are older don't retire from our spiritual effort because our children are raised. Hey, I'm still working. Man, we invest ourselves continually in the lives of the future generation. How often have we seen people who helped in one building program 30 years ago unwilling to help today? You know, they're still helping. Same people. They feel that they've already fulfilled their responsibility to happen so. Instead, this biblical model alerts us to the importance of subordinating our own personal vested interests to the welfare of the entire community. So, we can model this lifestyle for everyone. With one hand, we reach into our pockets to support the ongoing work of the congregation, while on the other hand, we reach into another pocket that God has given us to help support special projects in a sacrificial way. We do that all the time. We make no apology in sharing with our people what task God has assigned for us. We're in a radical commitment to an entire community, all of us. We are to discourage the designation of time, talent, and money to only part in which one is particularly interested, especially when that self-centered focus can detract from the area of broader need. Okay, second, a people mobilized for action is willing to be united in a common task following its God-given leadership. Verse 16 says, "So they answered Joshua, saying, all that you commanded we will do, and wherever you send us, we will go." Whoa. This passage emphasizes very clearly the importance of unity. We, huh? Okay. Moses got the people to say that too. Right?
Yes.
You got to be united together. We have lots of different diverse people here. I mean, we get them from everywhere. When we started, we had people in Catholics, and big high church goers, Methodists, and Presbyterians, and we had people that came from cults, Mormons, ex-Mormons, ex-cult people. We all kind of came together and tried to put this messianic congregation together. Messy, pretty messy. So that's why they call it messy. Because we are messy, but we managed to put it all together, and we seem to get along with each other. And you couldn't tell where someone came from now. But we all kind of came together somehow. We're not here simply to keep this building open. We're not here to keep this place funded. We don't get a lot of money here. Again, we need to remind ourselves of who we are. We are a congregation of Jews and Gentiles, committed to leading men, women, and children to personal faith in Yeshua HaMashiach, right?
Amen.
Committed to nurturing and growing in our knowledge and love of Yeshua, and committed to deploying our resources however best we can, both personal and financial, in servant ministries to others, and that has to be our unified goal. It has to be everyone's goal here. Okay? The sense of common task must be felt with such deep conviction that we're willing to die for it. We must be open to God's leadership and how He expresses His will through us. In the case of Israel, it was Joshua and the various officers who would lead in the conquest. In today's group, we must be open to the leadership that God has chosen and given to us, to remind ourselves that God expresses His will through those who are installed leaders. I didn't ask for this job, believe me, I did not ask for this job. Roger could attest to that. Roger did not ask for the job either, but we got it. And we accepted it. We put something together. It wasn't easy, but here we are. This was a new day for Israel, wasn't it? They were prepared to give to Joshua what they never gave to Moses: uncomplaining loyalty. They're giving Joshua something they never gave to Moses: uncomplaining loyalty. What did they do to Moses? They complained every day, didn't they? It was only in the last days of Moses' life that the people finally became united around him. It's amazing how quickly they forget They pledged to Joshua, just as we obeyed Moses in verse 17, so we will heed you. Well, that doesn't sound very good. Huh? They didn't really obey that. Only the Lord your God will be with you as he was with Moses. Yeah, their memory was short, but in a way, it was a healthy sign that they were maturing. There was continuity in their growth experience. Moses' story is one of unrequited affection. He loved the people, but they murmured and quarreled against him. Now they've learned their lesson. 40 years of wandering in the wilderness had taken its toll on them, right? They knew that the only way they could accomplish anything for God was to be united as a people. Oh yeah, willing to follow their leadership. So they pledged their loyalty in a united way to Joshua and in turn expected him and the rest of the leadership to be loyal to God. The world laughs at a group that's divided. I mean, they must laugh at the Messianic movement because it divides every day. It's like an amoeba. It admires the people that differs in ages, temperaments, dress, economics, and political ideology that has a oneness rooted in the person and work of Yeshua HaMashiach. We got to stay united in that, no matter what. So, there are two kinds of Christian communities around. One is like seagulls made up of loners. We've got them. We've got them here. They come here. And then they leave. And then they start their own little groups. There's little groups all over the place. I don't know how effective they are or what they do, but they don't like this or that aspect of what we do here. So they go off and they start. What does John Marquez describe? The great Christian buffet? Yep. 32,000 groups. I mean, I don't know. There's a whole group of loners. They don't want any authority at all. And they don't really want to follow God, I don't think. You're only safe if you as an individual have got it together. If you're wounded, you are left to take care of yourself. The other group is like Canadian geese. Okay? They help each other as they fly. They take turns. You ever see them fly in the lead position, cutting through the air, interference, creating a draft that makes it easier for others to fly? You ever see those V patterns in the sky? No one ever drops out alone in those groups. If one is injured, another stands by nursing it to health. It is a unified community that does not encourage any superstars. The story is told of a man who died and stopped into the presence of Peter at the gate, right? Got this Jewish rabbi standing at the gates of heaven, who they call Pope. He asked if he could take a look at both heaven and hell. So Peter's going to let him make up his mind, okay? This guy will touch. So Peter shows him a large banquet room of people eating magnificently prepared food. Then Peter took him to another large banquet room. Again, the man saw people eating magnificently prepared food. Wow. Somewhat confused, he asked Peter, which of these rooms is heaven, which is hell? They look the same to me. Peter said, let's go back and look more carefully at the people in each of the rooms. The man did look and then noted that the only eating utensil assigned to each person in the two rooms was a large, sharp sword. In one room, the people were selfishly stabbing at their food and were slashing their faces and bodies in their endeavor to feed themselves. In the other room, the people had learned to pierce the food with the sword and then ever so tenderly and sensitively feed each other. Hell was the room filled with the people so determined to do things their way that it was ending up as a place of mangled, bloody bodies. Heaven was the room of unity, love, and joy. A people mobilized for action involves the interaction of qualified leadership and unselfish people with unified common goals. And that's what we need here.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
There's Joshua for you. Okay, let's go to page 26. You want to do that? Later today? 22. Page 22. 22.
Aleinu b'shamayach l'adon hakol, l'tiku d'maleh bereshit, shalom asamenu k'elokei haratzot, v'lo samanu, k'mishpachot ha'adam, shalom sam chelkeinu ka'el, v'goreinu lo,
Frank Armbruce, Sandy Stork, and Betty Laird. Let's remember all those babies that never had a chance to live this week, and all those killed in military or terrorist actions. Is there anyone else we need to remember this week for your side? Yitbidal, Yitbidash, Shmeirah, B'Alma, Dibra, Hirute, B'Alma, Malkute, B'Chayechon, B'Yamechon, B'Chayechal, B'Et Yisrael, Ha'agalah, Bizman, Karib, Ru, Amen. Yehesh Shmeirah, B'Morak, Le'olam, Alameh, Amayah. V'yit Barak, v'yit Tabak, v'yit Bahar, v'yit Omaha, v'yit Naseh, v'yit Hadar, v'yit Oleh, v'yit Halal, Shemei Kudashah, v'yirachu. Le'elah min kol birchata v'shir ata, v'shtakata v'nechmata, Damiram v'yalma v'yiru, Amen. Yehi Shlomar Rabban Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'yalcho Yisrael v'yiru, Amen. Osei Shalom, Yirma, Huya Osei Shalom, aleinu v'yalcho Yisrael v'yiru, Amen. Magnified and sanctified be his great name in the world and is created according to his will. May he establish his kingdom during your life and during your days and during the life of the whole house of Israel, even swiftly and soon, and say, Amen. Let his great name be blessed forever to all eternity. Blessed, praised, and glorified, exalted, extolled, and honored, magnified and lauded be the name of the Holy One, blessed is he. Though he be high above all the blessings and songs, praises and consolations which are uttered in the world, and say, Amen. May there be great peace in heaven, and life for us and for all Israel, and say, Amen. May he who makes peace in his high places make peace upon us and upon all Israel, and say, Amen. 29.
Oh, say shalom in
Amazing to me how many Jewish people there are in this Omaha, Nebraska, that don't know the English translation of the song that they sing almost every week.
Adonai Hashem Allah, B'terem kol yitzir nivra, ve'im basar ve'em zoto, b'tzai melech shalom nivra, ve'am karev b'kol hakol, ve'v'achado b'mot norah, ve'hu bayah
in my little life, I've been with Jewish people walking, and we would sing the Dom Olam. One of them was the administrator over at ITT, and then when they ended, I'd break into the English, and they'd go, "Oh, no, I really never knew what it was I was singing."
Lord of worlds, the King supreme, before all creation came to be, when by His will all things were wrought, the name of our King was first made known, and when His age shall cease to be, He still shall reign in majesty. He was, He is, and He will be, our glorious, eternal being, incomparable. The Lord is one. No other than His nature share, without beginning, without end. Unto Him all strength and majesty is thy living God who saves. My rock when grief or sorrows fall, my banner and my refuge strong, my cup of life whenever I call, and in His hand I place my soul. Both when I sleep and when I wake, and with my soul and body too, God is with me. There is no fear.
Amen. Please turn to page 33, turn and face the flag to Jerusalem behind you for Hatikvah. Deep in the heart comes the Jewish soul, forward to the east and eye gazes to Zion. Our hope will not be lost, the hope of 2,000 years, to be a free people in our land. Amen. We traditionally form a prayer circle around the sanctuary. Those who wish to join us, we have oneg afterwards, we have food in the lobby, and we have Torah study later. If you have prayer request cards filled out, please give them to me.
Adon
Tai Tiftak, Fia Gi Tehillah Tech. Oh Lord, open my lips that my mouth may proclaim your praise. And Lord, we praise you for being the great I am, who was, who is, and who is to come. We thank you for filling our hearts and our minds with Yeshua HaMashiach, for giving us your Son as our eternal offering, our Passover lamb. And we thank you for taking away all the sin of the world in Yeshua HaMashiach. We thank you for allowing us to be his disciples. Lord, help us to do our work as his disciples. Help us to witness on the streets and in the homes and along the way and wherever we go. Help us to witness to people everywhere, to bring them to a knowledge of Yeshua. Let them all accept him. And Lord, especially Jewish people, Lord, we just want to open our hearts and minds to Jewish people because you said that they're the ones that have to ask for him to come back. In Matthew 23:39, when you said, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, you shall not see me again until you say that. And so, Lord, help us to get the Jewish people to accept him, and honor him, and to believe in him. And Lord, we just wait that glorious day when he returns. Till then, we pray for those of us who are sick or ill, who are away right now. Lift up my brother Clark, who's still in hospice care.
Yes, Lord. Yes.
And, we pray that you do your will in his life, Lord. We lift up our brother Danny,
Yes.
who's not here today.
Yes.
And Lori, his wife, and John and Mary Marquez.
Yes, Lord.
Thank you for bringing us Frank today. Good to see him.
Yes. Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
And Lord, we just lift them up. We lift up Leanna Goodrich's brother, Dan
Yes.
Washburn, who is now in hospice care up in Sioux City, and he's dying. And they only give him about 36 to 48 hours.
Oh, Lord.
Leanna's up there, was up there, but today she's not feeling well. We lift Leanna up for
Yes, Lord.
her to heal her and make her well. And
Yes.
she's with her daughter Hannah, who's
Yes.
singing today at the Iowa All-State, trying to get another win there. Lord. And so we
Yes.
lift up Hannah and ask you to bless her.
Yes.
Beautiful singing voice. We also lift up Jessica White, who's going to be marching across the street at the Bellevue West Marching Band
Yes, Lord.
today at the All-State competition.
Yes.
We lift up all these young
Hallelujah.
people that come to a God, and we just
Hallelujah.
ask you to bless them all in all their endeavors. And for Eric Nicholson, who's playing football tonight in Vermillion, South Dakota,
Hallelujah.
I was there a couple
Yes.
weeks ago seeing him play.
Yes, Lord.
So we just lift up all of our young people who are everywhere, and they are witnessing for us. I know.
Yes.
I know they are. And so we thank you for the
Yes.
great young people that you sent through Adat. We ask you to bless them all in Yeshua's holy name. Yevarechecha Levi Yishmerecha, Yael B'nei Panav Elecha V'chunecha, Yisah Adonai Panav Elecha, V'yasim Lecha, Shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you.
Yes.
The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace in the name of Yeshua, the Prince of Peace. B'Shem Yeshua Meshakenu. Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shalom, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shalom, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shalom, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shalom, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat